We have 4 board members here tonight, and Allie Ford was unable to make it tonight due to a work commitment.
Thank you. All right, we're going to have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Four point zero. I move that we approve the agenda.
Second.
Any questions or comments about the agenda? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Superintendent's report, Dr. Thomason.
President Race, members of the board, we are, after tomorrow, officially 1/4 way through the school year. I can't believe it's gone so fast. And with that, we have our fall break coming up. That's October 2nd through October 13th, followed by our Business Partners Breakfast on October 18th at 7:30 a.m. here in the boardroom. Everyone's invited to attend, so if you're available and you would like to attend our Business Partner Breakfast, please know that you're welcome. And then on Wednesday, October 25th, we have our Governing Board Work Study at 5:30, followed by our board meeting at 6:30. So that is our superintendent's report for this week.
Perfect. And just for clarification on upcoming events, just so we have it and people for our public can reference it, is Mrs. Ford has provided her resignation from the board due to additional work requirements. And her last meeting will be October 25th. But in the meantime, we are accepting applications for the board appointment process. Those applications are available here at the district office through October 9th. Applications will be accepted through 5 p.m. October 9th, and then interviews will be held on October 12th. We don't have a date yet as to when they would be announced. It would be once the county attorney has reviewed them and replied.
President Reese, members of the board, county
Superintendent.
Yeah, County Superintendent Stephen was unable to give me an exact timeline as he reviews and schedules interviews with the applicants.
So as soon as we get information as to when we can expect him to provide us the name of the person appointed, then we will let people know. Other board comments. When we had our last board meeting, Mrs. Kaler and I had just come from the ASBA Law Conference, and that was just the first day of it. It was a great conference. We have a lot of information. I know I've been sending some of the presentations out to the rest of the board who wasn't able to be there. So we'll continue to do that. I was able to attend a choir concert and a band concert. And I think something really exciting and new was last week I was able to attend a mock trial. And this was a lot of fun. It was done it's a new AP blended class in our high schools. It's for our freshmen. I believe we have 26 at Higley and 25 at Williamsfield. And it's a dual class where they're taking Honors English 9 and AP World History at the same time in the same class. And the same teachers teach it. So one day, one of the schools has history and the other school has English. And so these teachers created a mock trial for these kids. And so it included both Williamsfield and Higley freshman students, and they came and they presented their cases to our staff attorney. Miss Good was very, very gracious and served as the judge. And it was a really, really neat process to see. They had their jury, they had their attorneys, they had their paralegals, they had their bailiff, they had their clerk. And they were very much so into it, and they had to prove their cases. So that was a really neat experiment for them. And the teachers also have indicated they're hoping to do more things like that with these classes together. So that was fun. And then I was also able to attend a reception for a foundation. It's called FACE, and it's the Foundation for Arts, Culture, and Education, about building bridges. And that's a music program that's put on at the Higley Center. And it teaches kids through music about challenges they face today, bullying, violence, things like that. And one thing that they implemented, they tested it last year, they're implementing this year, is they're doing a sensory specific program for kids with autism and who have some special needs. So it's very sensitive to sensory sensitive kids, and that's a new thing. I'd like to see our music programs get a little more involved in this. It is performed here at the Higley Center, and it's all free of charge for our kids to attend. And the songs, all the lessons, everything's provided for our music teachers, that they can start teaching these lessons within their music classes, and they can hear the songs and learn them. So when they attend the performance, they're familiar. And they also provide busing. So they'll pay for free busing, and it's a really great program. So I was able to attend a reception for that the other day, and I really enjoyed seeing Sue Sossaman there, who our Early Child Development Center is named after. It was good to see. So, and then we attended a ASBA county meeting, and a policy committee has been formed, and we have started reviewing our district policies. So,
President Reese?
Mrs. Kaler.
Yeah, I was with you a lot this last month. And spending time with moms too at our ASB Law Conference. It was just really full of great topics, anywhere from board pitfalls, and I know you're sending out the things, which is awesome. A lot of information on social media, which was fascinating since we are in this age of social media. So all of that was really great. Also, we attended, a couple of us went to the Higley homecoming game, and it was a great tailgate party, great food, great football game. We slaughtered them. And I guess you have Williamsfield is this weekend, homecoming, yes?
Williamsfield's homecoming is this weekend.
So all fun, good times. Also, Cortina had a huge robotics competition. John Burke just put his heart and soul into that, and I heard we did really well in that for their first time doing that largest scale. The Gilbert Town Hall, several of us attended that, which was also very interesting. And just congratulations again to Nancy Foote being named Most Valuable Teacher by the Diamondbacks. That's a huge perk for our district and for herself, especially what she's overcome this past year. So just wanted to put a shout out to that.
Very nice. Mr. Glover? Oh, Mr. Tovich? Okay. Very nice. Request to speak to the governing board. Mrs. Reach, do you have any? Do we? You will have. All right, I'll come back to that while she fills it out. We'll go to our consent agenda. I move that we approve consent agenda items 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, 7.4, 7.5, 7.6, 7.7, 7.8, 7.9, 7.10, 7.11, 7.12, 7.13, 7.14, 7.15, and 7.16.
Second.
Any questions on any of those items? Any concerns on that long list?
Yes.
All right,
Madam
Mr.
President.
Glover.
Just a few, and Dr. Thompson can probably answer some of these. So I'm just going to kind of look at the notes in here. But on 7.6, does this say that do we reimburse for bus drivers' fingerprint cards? I'm not. It says.
I'm not aware that we reimburse them, no.
All right, but we assume the cost of the physical exam. It says in there, right?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay, well, fingerprint cards are good for several years, and it might be worth considering. I don't know if you sort of prorate it over time, but it's hard to make somebody pay, what is it now, $60 or probably more, $60 the last time I renewed. To ask,
89.
all right, like almost $100. That's a lot of.
And they're good
bus
for
drivers.
7 years now.
Yeah, anyway, it might be worth considering to, if you stay X number of years or so, I don't know, that we, or maybe if they're here for, I don't know how long our bus drivers stay, but anyway, it's a lot to ask for an hourly bus driver's wage to pay that much money for the fingerprint cards. They have to have it, I get it, but yeah. Anyway, so that was one thing. Number 7.8, all right, it said something about, this was on here because of sunscreen, but did I miss? Where is sunscreen in there at all? I mean, I don't see anything struck from there. I don't have any concerns about bringing sunscreen to school, but I'm just wondering, what are we adding to this policy or deleting? Because it's not clear to me. Or maybe Ms. Good can get back to me on that one.
President Race, members of the board, I do know it's a new requirement from the state of Arizona. Arizona Revised Statute allows students to bring sunscreen to school, as before they hadn't allowed it as a medication. But now students can carry and have sunscreen on their body when they come to schools now.
No, I understand that, Dr. Thompson, but it doesn't say anything we didn't add that in there. It doesn't say kids can bring that in that policy. So did we miss something, I guess, is what I'm asking.
I will reach back out to our attorney, Mrs. Linda Good, and get back with you on that.
All right, because I feel like we're approving something that nothing's been added or deleted.
I thought I saw it in there. Maybe it's that I read on the first page.
All right. We're going all the way through 7.16, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, Dr. Schellenberg, I think this is probably headed your way. The staff travel to the OLS conference. This isn't really a question, it's just a comment, but when we send folks to things like this, and let me pull up the staff that we're sending. Do we have a process in place for if somebody comes back? I mean, we have other ELL teachers that are not going, so are they going to make some PD or something how does that, do you get?
Yes, that is an expectation. When we send you to a conference, whether it's in-state or out-of-state, that you come back and you share that information with the rest of the department or staff.
Is it however I'm not being glib. Is it however they decide? I mean, if an email or if it's a PD, they can sort of choose the method, right?
They have in the past. We're trying to make it more formalized.
No, I'm not asking to create more problems. I was just curious what the current
Yeah, in the
practice
past
is.
it was kind of open. We're again trying to make that established as an expectation so that when we send you someplace, you are bringing something back to the district.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And okay, I'll just wrap with this for 7.16. Have we, with the recent hazing at Hamilton High, you did revisit this lately with all of our coaches, I hope, right?
Yes, Dr. Fowler has met with our athletic directors, and we did a presentation for our coaches at the beginning of the year. Dr. Fowler, would you want to give us an update on the presentation you did at the beginning of the year with our athletic directors and coaches?
President Reese, members of the board, we follow the Arizona Revised Statutes and the policy. Our athletic handbook specifically addresses hazing. I meet monthly with our athletic directors who on their sites also meet regularly with their coaches. We in fact met today, and it was on our agenda and shared some more information. As you know, Higley is one of the first school districts in Arizona to partner with the Positive Coaching Alliance, and I also shared some other resources that can and I know have been used by our campuses with coaches as well, not just for hazing related items, but also social media and other pieces. And so certainly with the issues at Hamilton, it's in the forefront, and I think our coaches and certainly athletic directors are very aware of that, and communicating and making sure that we're doing everything that we should in a proactive way.
Thanks, I just wonder.
That goes anytime, even when you're traveling, right?
Thank you, Madam President.
Any other?
Sure, I have a question in reference to 7.10. It says Williamsfield High School. Was that made available to the Higley music teachers, high school teachers as well?
President Reese, members of the board, it's the Williamsfield High School music teacher that did bring this forward. I don't believe the music teachers at Higley High School asked about this, but we can reach out to them to see if this is something that they might be interested in. But at this time, only the Williamsfield High School music teachers did bring this forward to us as a trip they would like to go on.
Sure. It just would be nice if there was a conversation that took place between the two schools in reference if they chose not to elect to take part in it. Yes.
Absolutely, I
That's
will
my
make sure to reach out to the teachers at Higley High School and see if they want to be included in this program.
And maybe that's something we can make a note of regarding our communication goal, just to have a note there. Because I believe the process is that if a teacher, staff member, someone sees a conference, knows of a conference that they want to attend, they just request that. So maybe something that we can look at within our communication goal somewhere is that to share these conferences across the district for people that might be interested in going.
President Reese, members of the board, I know that both schools did get the information. I just don't know if both schools chose to spend some of their allocation in going to the conference.
Gotcha. Thank you. Any other questions? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. We will go back to request to speak to the governing board. We value input from our constituents. This time has been set aside for anyone from the audience who wishes to address the board. Please remember, this is not an appropriate venue to evaluate, discuss, or criticize district personnel. Policy KEB provides a process for complaints about personnel. Speakers should be aware that false statements about individuals may result in civil liability. Members of the board may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS.38-431.01H, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date. Please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. And I have Angela Robinson.
Does it start ticking when I start talking?
Yep.
Thank you for letting me speak today. I am a member of the community, have 4 kids in the district, and I am also a musician. I sent an email out, which I'm sure you hopefully probably read. Just want to voice my support again for having orchestra available in the schools. I would ask that you please not relegate the orchestra instruments to second class or anything less than what is offered to the band students. If the band gets something, then the orchestra should also have the same opportunity and availability. There's no reason why they should not be equally offered. As to, I know, one thing mentioned in the previous meeting, choice. I will say, growing up in Gilbert, I did not start out on an orchestra instrument in the school. I tried out a different instrument. I played the flute for a year. I played the bass, which is what I stuck with. And I also took private lessons. So if something was not available to me in school that I wanted to play, I was free to go out and get private lessons in that instrument, which I did. And I had the availability of playing several different instruments in the different years I was in school, which was great. And I ended up focusing in one area eventually. So I don't feel like I ever had any lost opportunities as far as choice in what I could play. Other than that, I just really appreciate Higley and all that you have done and the progress that we've made since I've moved in here. I grew up in Gilbert. I love Gilbert. I love our schools. And I appreciate all the work you do. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other requests? All right. We'll go on to 9.1, an information item, which is our monthly financial reports. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Holland on our monthly financial report? Thank you for providing that. So 9.2, I move that we accept the annual financial report and authorize its publication.
I'll second.
So good evening, President Reese, members of the board. I do have a joke for you this evening. I did come prepared. So, this is a conversation between a mother and a son. Okay, so mother says, "What did you learn in school today?" "How to write." "What did you write?" "I don't know. They haven't taught us how to read yet." So this evening tonight, I'd like to, or I will be presenting to you our annual financial report from our 16-17 school year. However, before we get into the numbers of the whole presentation, I have a few fun facts that I'd like to share with each of you. So in the 16-17 school year, our enrollment, we had 12,395 students last year. We had 1,330 employees. We had 211,407 minutes of instruction. We issued 38,483 paychecks, totaling $64,145,856. Just a little bit. We served 772,755 meals. And the biggest thing, of course, is we drove over 1 million miles last year. So what does that equate to? So technically, we drove around the world 40 times. Because believe it or not, miles around the world is only 24,900. So seems like it would be more. But. Okay, so on to our numbers. So last year, our total expenditures for the 16-17 year was $112,672,932. So a good chunk of change. How that's made up of? Well, $62,732,434 specifically came out of our M&O. Our classroom site, which is our 301, which is used for our teachers only, we spent a little over $3.7 million. Our instructional improvement or ending gaming revenue totaled a little over $481,000. Now that revenue, those funds are specifically used for teacher salary and benefits, and we receive that funding twice a year in January and in June. You'll also notice that out of our bond or adjacent ways, we spent a little over $10.3 million. And in our debt service, we spent a little over $8.3 million. What the revenue that comes in from our taxes is what makes up our debt service. That revenue is then used to pay the principal payment on interest on all of our outstanding bonds. You'll also notice a big number down below is other. Well, what makes up other? So a little over $4 million, right? And so that was made up of lost textbooks, as well as some litigation recovery. So remember, last year we did purchase some land. So there's, of course, the largest chunk, as well as our small indirect costs that we receive from our federal grants, some money from gifts and donations capital, and then, of course, some transportation services or some field trips. How does that kind of break down pie chart-wise? So you'll notice that our M&O of our $112 million, 56% of that was our M&O. 9% of that was for bond, and 7% of that was for debt service. So those, if you'll notice, those are our three biggest categories from last year. So looking at our M&O specifically, as I mentioned, we spent $62,732,434. Last year, we had a budget of $68,283,287. And we spent 62.7, which gave us a carryover amount of a little over $5.5 million. Now, why are we carrying over so much money? I'm happy to explain. So for the purchase services, you'll notice purchase property services, that money is used for repairs, maintenance, and rental of equipment. Our dues and fees is money that's used for technology, network fees, professional membership, licenses for all of our softwares. And one reason, the biggest thing as I was mentioning, our carryover, why we needed to try to be conservative as possible, because we do have a new curriculum that we started to implement the process last year, which will be continuing each year. It's currently budgeted at $1.2 million. However, I know last year the ELA portion was about 1.7. So we also have our technology refresh plan, which costs us $3.5 million every year, as well as, of course, our middle school lease payments. I just like to remind everybody about that because, of course, that's our biggest bill we have.
And President Reese, members of the board, also would like to remind the board that our lease payment does go up after year 5, and so we're trying to plan ahead for that also.
So yes, in 15-16 and 16-17, our lease payment was 3.25. Next year, our lease payment is going up to 4.2. Where in the next following year, in 19-20, it will go up to $4.4 million, where it will stay until 2053. So it is in our best interest to try to be as conservative as possible so that we can try to have that money to meet that $1 million increase next year and an additional $1 million after that. How does that break down pie chart-wise? So of the $62 million, you'll notice 86% of that was for salaries and benefits. As an any company, as you know, salaries and benefit are your biggest expense, usually about 85% on average. So 86 is pretty much right in line. Also, our utilities, of course, was our next biggest expense of 5% of our budget. Again, this just kind of references back to kind of recap our 68.2, we spent 62.7. We're carrying over about 5.5. As I mentioned, Another reason why we were trying to be conservative as well is because the board was very generously gave a 2% salary increase for all staff for the 17-18 school year. We have our continued adoption of curriculum, technology updates, new uniforms, athletic uniforms and band uniforms, as well as our middle school lease payments that we just discussed.
So, Mr. Holland, just to clarify, this 5.5 million, when you were listing the things that we still coming up, that 5.5 doesn't really cover all of that, correct?
No, ma'am. No, no.
Not at all.
It doesn't.
So, but have we, I'll let you finish.
No, go ahead, finish. So the 5.5 is as much as we could try to save and carry over into this year. You'll remember when we did the budget adoption, we had to take money out of our regular M&O operating budget and move to our unrestricted capital. Remember, we moved about, it calculated out to about $5 million, and so we had to move $5 million out of our operating to capital to be able to meet all of our capital needs that this district has. And so I'll kind of go over that a little more in a couple of minutes. But keep in mind, a lot of the things too, when we did that May revision, where we had those funds to be able to move over to capital, was also at the end of the school year. So we did not have time to purchase the capital items that we needed for them to be able to be ordered and received by June 30th. So those items that were in process were actually ordered in the 17-18 school year, and so that 5.5 is long gone already. Okay. Next, I wanted to talk about our classroom spending. Actually, the Auditor General's classroom spending report. So you'll notice that it is reflective of 2015-16 timeframe, because the 16-17 timeframe is not available and will not be available until March of 2018. At that time, I will bring that information back to you. But how did Higley fare against the state overall? So you'll notice for classroom instruction, district-wide average, or excuse me, statewide average is 53.5, where here at the district, ours was 57.7. So we are definitely trying to put as much money into our classrooms as possible. You'll notice for facilities, statewide, average is 12.1, where ours is 11.7. We have our instructional support, and I notice here that statewide it's 5.7, where ours is 4.8. So we are down based off of statewide average, but again, remember, we're trying to put as much money into classroom instruction as which is more effective or more important per se than the support aspect of it. Does that make sense? Again, because the key thing is to get those dollars into our classrooms.
Mr. Holland?
Yes, ma'am.
I see that we're quite a bit lower also in student support. Can you maybe explain what goes into student support? I didn't mean to put you on the spot there, because I know the way the Auditor General, they classify things sometimes in a different manner. So I didn't know if you, off the top of your head, know what they include in that student support calculation.
Well, unfortunately, the Auditor General's calculation is kind of a mystery, meaning in a way. I say that because we'll send them all the information, but they will go through and review it, and if they feel something is not classified correctly, they will make adjustments. However, they don't tell you what those adjustments are. Does that make sense? So
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, and the reason I ask is because I know like our literacy coaches and stuff, those fall under administration. So that's why, when people see administration, they don't think of literacy coaches.
everything that goes in. Yeah.
So I just didn't know why we may be looking so much lower on student support, and if it's a classification issue, that what they're classifying as student support, that we have, maybe that's classroom instruction, something, I don't know.
Well, and of course, anything that is truly classroom instruction, all of that is coded under function 1000, right? So under student support, you're going to have other support. So you'll have Isabel.
I know, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to catch you off guard because I know that they
Fine.
classify things differently.
Right. So Isabel is actually our director of finance, since if you've never met her, tonight's her first night coming. So Isabel, tell me what's in student support that you can think of off the top of your head. We can do more research, of course. At the moment, it's not coming up the top of my head.
No, and when I was looking at this, I noticed it was quite a bit different, so.
And we did notice that as well.
Okay.
In fact, that was actually a conversation that I had just before the board meeting on that number, because I was concerned you might ask me about that number.
All right. Well, then if you can do some research and get that sent out to us, that would be
Will.
great.
No problem.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Now, you know when I leave here, I'll think of the answer. So next, we have our Classroom Site Fund, or our Prop 301. Remember, that comes in 3 buckets. So you have Fund 11, which is base salary. You have Fund 12, which is specifically for performance pay, and then you have 13, which covers other. We have a lot of supplementals and stuff that come out of our bucket 13. So going into the 16-17 school year, we had a carryover balance of a little over 1.6 million. We collected a little over 4.5 million in revenue, and we spent a little over 3.7. Going into the 17-18 school year, we had a carryover a little over 2.5. But please keep in mind, again, as I'd mentioned in my budget presentation, one thing that this district prides itself on is being able to increase the amount of money that goes to teachers each year. So every year for the last several years, we have increased that compensation to that teacher every single year, whereas some districts build that into the salary schedule. So say, for example, so when you're presenting that information, say at like a job fair, for example, right? When the districts are posting, hey, our salaries appear to be much higher than Higley's, well, and technically it's in reality, ours is higher, but it's just not built into a salary schedule. We break it all down. And we break it down on purpose so that they can actually see that here's the money that you're actually getting. Here's our 301 money, right? As opposed to being buried into your regular check, and so you may get $15 at we do it out in like December and the end of the year. So they actually get a live check. Here's your classroom site money that we will be presenting on December the 7th payroll.
And
Mr. Holland, when is this scheduled to sunset? Do you know? Or Mr. Glover, do you know? 2020? I was going to say, I know it's not very far, so.
3 years from now, 2.5.
Yeah, that's what I was going to interject, is just to remind people that might be listening or hearing or whatever, that is due to expire, and that has made a huge difference in a lot of teachers' lives and what we could, we all know the reality of teacher salaries in Arizona, but this has made a significant difference, and it will poof, go away unless the people of the state of Arizona want it again, or the governor and the legislature could act. So anyway, just, we all know that, but it's always good to put a plug in for that. It has really made a big difference.
Where you can spread that word.
So
And-
keep an eye out.
And Mr. Glover, to kind of
Really
piggyback the news articles coming out about the teacher shortage, I mean, Arizona has to step it up, period. I mean, it just has to, so hopefully we will see this
As we all
be
know,
renewed.
Arizona's in last place, right? And they made a point of it again on KTR this week, over and over and over all day long. And they even addressed the impact that 301 has had, and and it's encouraged people to please re-vote for this again, reauthorize it. Any other questions on that? Okay. So next, I wanted to talk to you about our capital. So we've talked about that some already. So for last year, as I mentioned, so our total capital budget last year was $14.1 million. Now, keep in mind, it was only 9 until we were able to do our budget revision in May, and that's when we were able to move those additional funds. That's how we got to the 14 million. So you'll notice, as of last year, we had only spent a little over 6.4 at the end of the school year, but that's because all of those capital items that I was referring to were not able to come in until after July, so they are actually a 17-18 expense. So that $5 million that I was talking about, right, and carry over to help with our lease payments and those different expenses, as well as, you know, our capital remaining a little over 7.6. Again, what is capital used for? It's used for our lease payments. It's used for curriculum, our technology. Last year, we purchased 3,286 student laptops. We purchased 1 fleet truck and 1 used Impala car. I already mentioned our athletic uniforms, band uniforms. So that's kind of how we utilize those funds, and then that's why, again, why we carried over so much, but please know that it has already been expended, right? Yes, it makes me nervous that it's already gone. But so again, kind of how this breaks down, you know, so we had our bond funds, which is also another source that we use to buy capital. So we had a little over 10.2 there, and we had a little over $50,000 out of adjacent ways expense, so not very much. Kind of what makes up that, all those bond dollars. So we purchased 3 regular buses. We purchased 4 special needs buses. We had our technology refresh plan of the 3.5. We have repairs and a refresh that we've done to Higley's tennis courts, as well as looking at building new tennis courts for Williamsville this year. Again, these carryover dollars help support all of that. For facility projects, we had additional building at Williamsville. We had additional classrooms and remodels at Williamsville, Cortina, Higley, Power Ranch, Sossaman, and HTA. Floor upgrades that we did were at Williamsville and Cortina. We have new marquees that we purchased for Power Ranch and Chaparral, as well as some landscape and courtyard remodels and updates at Centennial, Williamsville, and HTA. And with that being said, I have some pictures for you to kind of show you of those capital projects, and so you can kind of see what the finished product looks like. So where did those funds go? Well, here they went. So you'll notice, as I mentioned, at Centennial, what I didn't mention is we put in new water fountains and bottle fountains as well, right? We have a new concrete slab and a cover that was installed at Centennial. We have the new marquee that I referenced at Chaparral.
And just to clarify, because I know there was a lot of questions when we were talking about the marquees, that the funds that you're going over for the items that we've enhanced and purchased, those funds cannot be used for textbooks and classroom instruction materials. They are specific. So I know a lot of our community members had asked about, you know, why are we putting a digital marquee up when our classrooms need new textbooks? And it's to explain that we can't use those funds for new textbooks. They are very specific.
Correct. So to fund our textbooks, that has to come out of our capital. All of these improvements were taken out of bond. And those bond dollars and those projects were very specific in the pamphlet that the voters approved, and we can't deviate from those projects that were
Right.
there.
So all the stuff that the pictures we're gonna see and you're going over, those are bond dollars, and that is money that cannot be used for textbooks and classroom supplies.
Correct.
I do have a question in reference to the drinking fountains, I saw that were installed. Do they have a filtering system on them?
They do.
They do. Good, good, good.
And it's my understanding from conversations that I've had with support services, those filters tend to be expensive.
So
That's the message I've gotten about that.
So in the world of sustainability, it's a good thing you're doing that, okay? Is there plans to start going across the district in reference to that for filtering systems for our drinking water for our children? For water bottles, guys? Okay.
Centennial specifically was a project that campus directed and moved forward with. As you know, our newer campuses actually have been built in, so you'll see that at the bridges and at our new middle schools. And so, I mean, we don't specifically have that built in, but certainly something we can look at. The Centennial refresh was something campus directed, and so that's that. I mean, we currently don't have it on our radar, but it's not something that we're opposed to look at. But we do have some other things that are kind of ahead of that. But so to answer your question, is that it's kind of campus by campus at this point in time. So we're about maybe halfway there. But certainly something that we can look at. But it's been, Centennials was specifically a direction requested from their campus, and so.
Sure, because I think particularly even at the high school level, the filtering system for water bottles, because I know at college that's all there is on campus. We have no plastic bottles, and so
Right.
I'm sure those students at that secondary level will be more in reference to the world of sustainability to be interested in those type of things, so.
We're not opposed to looking at it, but
Yeah.
it's not, like I said, Centennial had kind of taken the lead and wanted to make that, so we were certainly there to support that and make that happen, and we'll kind of go campus by campus, like we are with some of those other items. I believe so as well, yeah. The Centennial PTO was involved and
Sure.
active
So
with that as well.
could we, are we thinking about sharing that idea with the other PTOs at the other schools if they wanted to implement something?
Well, I mean, I do think that those campuses communicate and the PTOs get those ideas, and so, I mean, I personally don't, tell the PTOs what to do, but they certainly share, and I do think that I won't be surprised to see more campuses move in that direction as well, so.
Okay.
Next, we have Coronado. At Coronado, we did some retrofitting of the dryers in the restrooms. We added a new gate, as well as some electrical lighting for the bus loop lights, excuse me. Oh, you know what? My things got all out of whack. I'm so sorry. I'm like, wait a minute. So as you can see, we built life skills classrooms. Okay. So that's the next slide. Oh, what a day. Huh? Yeah, but presentations are usually my thing, but not today.
So on the electrical for the bus light loops at Gateway Pointe, did that not have lighting? Oh, it was upgraded. It's one little loop, so I never went into that area, so I didn't know. So, okay.
Actually, I'll just go off this. That way I'll make a mistake. No problem. So next we have Higley High. So you'll notice at Higley, we did a retrofit in their building 900, as well as the tennis courts that I mentioned. This year, we also are putting new carpet in the 700 building over at Higley. Now that is a chunk or a portion of those funds are actually being donated from outside vendors. So we have some vendors that are donating money, some that are donating materials, some are donating the labor, and then the district covers whatever is left. So that's a project that we currently have going on this year. That's one of the projects. At HCA, you'll notice they had quite a bit going on at their school. So they got new landscape, new irrigation, they got new bleachers, and installing those new electric bleachers required new electrical, which wasn't We didn't know we needed that until last minute, so that's an unplanned expense. We did some remodeling in their bathrooms, and then of course the nicest thing you can show up there, is there's teacher's lounge that was completely redone from top to bottom. If you haven't seen it, it is beautiful. It has brand new appliances, granite countertops, brand new furniture. It's a very nice, pleasant environment. So they're very fortunate.
I'd like to thank you for the landscaping and irrigation. I've visited a number of times, and a lot of the parents and children at that school, it was basically dirt all the time on the playground and their knees and clothes, and so I've driven by there lately, and when water's been brought there, it looks wonderful, so thank you for the initiative on that.
Happy that you're happy. At Power Ranch, we did relocate our Desert Choices classrooms from Gateway to Power Ranch, so we had to build new classrooms. So we built in the 400 building, you notice we built 3 rooms. We also have an inside classroom, and we also have a secured room. All of those are brand new, of course. Here's the second marquee at Power Ranch. And at Sossaman Middle, again, we built some additional classrooms, so you'll notice we have a SPED classroom. We have a pre-K classroom that was converted to a regular class. And we also have a pre-K room that was converted to a nurse's station room.
Just a quick question on the pre-K class that was converted to a classroom. Is that a classroom for Sossaman Middle School students, or is that another preschool type classroom?
It's my understanding that it was for a regular classroom.
So we have students that come downstairs into that area where the preschool is for class? Okay. Okay.
Unfortunately, I've never been there, so I can't really tell you where it's at.
Okay.
It's on my list, but I haven't got there yet. And then, of course, we have our brand new addition at Williamsfield. Also at Williamsfield, we redid the floor in the band room, as well as floor repairs in Building 300, as well as new courtyard, new landscape, new concrete. If you haven't been by, which I believe you all have, you'll notice it is a very pleasant courtyard now.
You're in reference to Williamsfield High School. It looks wonderful, the front of the building. What's our timeline as far as the side of the buildings, as far as the painting? Has there been any update on that at all?
That would have to be.
Okay, that's fine, that's fine, that's fine.
President Reese, members of the board member Witovich, patiently trying to work with the state. In fact, it's been 2 months. We've followed all of the procurement, and we have the vendor that actually the same vendor that painted the front facade we did the bidding process, and they're ready. And for a couple technical issues at the State Facilities Board, we kept getting bumped, and so they are assuring me that next Wednesday it will be on the board, on their board meeting for approval, and so we'll get going immediately after that. So we've been patiently waiting. It's a little hard when it's their money and they get to kind of control that, but thank you for noticing that. But we do have it on our radar, and as well as some other items that I'll be hopeful to share in coming meetings. So we continue to work well with the State Facilities Board, and even the example up there that as the board knows, the majority of the funding in terms of the remediation actually came from state dollars, and there's just a little bit of bond to in the remediation related items. And so we continue to work effectively. I don't know if we'll be able to hit the $5 million mark like we did last year, but we're certainly shooting for that again with the state. And so, but that's a great question, and so I would know the answer by Wednesday, and I'll let the board members know that that's through Dr. Thomason that has been approved. So we're just waiting for their approval.
It looks great.
All right, thank you.
So I have an answer to your question on the student support. So that money is made up of counselors, ideologists, speech pathologists, nurses, social workers, and attendance services.
So then as a follow-up to that, would that be for our contracted services? Would that reflect in there, or would that only be those professions that we employ directly? And you may not know, because there are some of these services that we contract out that they're not employees of the district, and I don't know if that would be reflective in that number.
It should.
Okay.
I understand contracting out is a professional service, but it still would classify as student support.
Okay.
Okay, and it is dollars that we would spend for that purpose.
Perfect. Thank you. Look at you guys sitting there looking it up as we go along.
Backup crew for everything.
Right?
So, do you have any questions on anything? No? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for putting that together.
Yes, ma'am.
So with that, we do have a motion and a second. Any other comments or concerns regarding the annual financial report? Nope. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries 4-0.
I was kind of hanging out for your next one coming up to see if you have questions.
For 9.4, is that the one you're talking about?
Public hearing for the 1.06.
Okay, we'll get there in just 1 second. We're on 9.3. This one is either to approve the first read or possible adoption of amendment of policy IMG for animals in schools. I move that we approve the first read for the amendment of policies IMG for animals in school.
I'll second that.
And I do have some questions and clarifications on this, but I do know Ms. Good's not here. So I'm okay with the first read, but wanted to ask her some other information and some clarification regarding service animals and animals in our schools. I did find miniature horse very interesting in that policy, that a service animal is defined either as a dog or a miniature horse. So that was Queen Creek, Gilbert, yes. So I'm okay with the first read, but I did have some clarifications, and since she's not here, I wasn't comfortable going forward with the adoption yet. So any other questions on this one? I'll make sure that I get my questions to her for clarification, and obviously we can have those put out to the rest of the board, but anything that would change would be on the final adoption for that. So, all right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries 4-0. 9.4. I move that we schedule a public hearing for October 25th, 2017 Governing Board meeting concerning the allocation of monies related to the intended 1.06% teacher salary increase.
Second.
So I wanted to give you a little bit of information to add to that. So at your October 25th meeting, I will bring before you a revised budget, which will be specifically for the 1.06 teacher increase. We will be posting that notice, a public hearing notice, as well as the details on the districts here at the district. We will be running an ad in the newspaper on the 11th. We will be sending it out as part of the Higley newsletter on the 14th. Because again, we want our teachers to know that we are doing this and exactly who qualifies for that 1.06. Also, so kind of if If you're not familiar enough, let me just to clarify a little bit. So this funding is specifically for teachers. The teacher had to be a teacher in an Arizona school district or charter in the 16-17 school year and have to still be teaching in an Arizona school district or charter in the 17-18 school year. Substitutes are not eligible. Professional service personnel, say like for smart schools, for example, they're also not eligible. If you were to give you some other examples, if you were a substitute last year and you're a teacher this year, you're not eligible. If you were a teacher and you changed positions, say to a principal or assistant principal, you're not eligible. Does that make sense?
Yes, and this
Questions?
this is the teacher increase from Governor Ducey.
Correct. And again, this funding is supplemental, so it is has nothing to do with the 2% that you guys had already approved. This is on top of that. And it is from all funds, all compensation that they received. So all teachers are funded through Function 1000, which is instruction. So whether it was salary, a supplemental, classroom site funding, tutoring, all of that. So it's total compensation last year. We add all that up, multiply that 1.06. That's the amount of money total-wise that will be part of that budget revision that I will bring to you. That information will then be uploaded to the Department of Education, where they will then take all of that from all of the schools and come back on December the 1st with the allocations. Now the plan for the district then is once we receive those funds on the last payroll before winter break, which will be December the 21st, all of those teachers will be given a check for the amount of the 1.06 as a one-time payment.
Perfect. So, right. So this public hearing will go over all that information.
So the intent is to put all of that information out there now to try to answer any questions they may have. So yes, when I come to you, I will kind of present the same information that I'm telling you now and answer any more questions you might have and ask you to vote, take on the revision.
Okay.
Madam President.
Mr. Glover?
Mr. Holland, so I do remember that you were talking, you and your counterparts had to work together to get a form to get the information from the other school district. How is that going?
I mean, it went good.
It's
So
all-
there's a few different forms that schools are using.
Right, but you're getting the information and it's flowing around the state for the
So
people who
far,
didn't
we
work in.
haven't had any problems. We're currently waiting on, out of all of them that we had to send out, we only are waiting on 14, which is very good.
That is very good.
But we are actively pursuing those as well because we need to get that information in plenty of time to be able to do a budget revision.
And just one more thing, maybe for Dr. Thomason and perhaps Mom. This isn't really a question. I know that, I'm sure that most teachers are aware of this, but is the HEA, I mean, are they also telling the membership that this is the projected, I mean, I don't anticipate any problems with this notice, but they will know
Absolutely, it's a well-known out there for our teachers that
of the date.
they have
to the
1.06%. We decided in the district to look at it as a stipend for this year because we don't have it set into our budget as ongoing year after year, and so it's going to be put out as a stipend instead of a contract increase.
Okay, but they, I mean, at this December 21st date, they already, I mean, it's not, we haven't voted yet, but they're aware that it would be before, okay, right.
That-
So
It's too
basically,
late.
everything I'm sharing with you will all be in the notice that will be.
Right, I didn't know if they knew, already, but,
Yeah, I think what Mr. Glover's saying is to make sure that the HEA gets the information of this public hearing on October 25th so they can share that with their membership. Is that what you were asking?
yeah, I just, it's nice to know, I think, as a teacher that, when those bills are rolling in, that there might be a little bit, something extra this year, so that's all. It's a good thing.
Any other questions regarding the scheduling of this public hearing? No? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. All right, so for future agenda items, we have Title I presentation in October. Also, there was questions about student field trips and professional development overview. We're supposed to get an update on Bring Your Own Device in November, and overview of services provided by guidance counselors in December. We do also currently have our Board of Self-Evaluation scheduled for October 28th. My understanding is Mr. Witovich is not able to make that date. We will we do have, by policy, have to get our self-evaluation done, so we will go forward with that. We will look and see if the ASBA training, we were also scheduled for that day, if that can be rescheduled to January. So we will have our board evaluation scheduled on October 28th. Any other future agenda items?
Go ahead.
Ladies first.
Well, I was just going to ask, since we've gotten all this great information, what you shared with us early on the board vacancy, if we can make sure that maybe perhaps Mrs. Reese could get that out in some kind of email blast to our community, just so that we are very much communicating the process and how it's going to go completely.
I think it's up on our website for applications. It's also, my understanding is we were adding that interviews would be on October 12th, so that way people knew.
I just think it just could be like a separate email, not just posted. I guess that's what I'm asking.
A separate email blast.
Well, I was expecting it to see kind of like a link maybe in our newsletters from all the schools, but there wasn't any kind of, no board. It's on the website. I see it on the website totally, but I just think we need to maybe link it to all the newsletters that might come out even tomorrow, if that's possible, maybe.
Newsletter's done.
Well, may I piggyback? I mean, it might be a nice gesture. I mean, Ally's been on the board, just to thank her for her service as well, for everybody, right? And just announce that there's a vacancy. That doesn't seem like a bad email. I know. No, but people always say that something is posted on the website, like, okay, the Higley site is not my most visited thing on my computer. I'm sure a lot of parents are the same way. So just an email saying that would be, I don't know. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Witovich?
Sure, I just have two things. One is if we could have a presentation in reference to the enrollment numbers for this year, be it at a regular board meeting or a work study.
We received all that information in our superintendent's report.
Correct, and I'd like to have a conversation perhaps at a work study.
Okay, that would probably not go until January or so.
That'd be fine, and things in reference to having a discussion about the numbers and where we're going in the future, those type of things, and what the plans are for the future.
Maybe what we can do is after our 100th day of school, if that's okay with you, after the 100th day of school, we have a better idea of, that's another mark that we look at our numbers, and then maybe we can use those numbers and have that discussion. Okay.
And the other thing, I saw that great article in the paper in reference to Bridges on their makerspace in their media centers, and I was very pleased and very happy with that. That was shown throughout the state of Arizona. We have implemented a new program in reference to our media centers, and I think at a work study session, I think we're going to be changing that process. Either they're going to be filmed or recorded, and versus at a general meeting. I think perhaps it would be nice for the community to see where we've taken the media centers and things like, to highlight things like the Bridges Makerspace and all the creative things that are taking place at our other schools and where we're taking things. Perhaps if they could share the curriculum, and since we're doing grading and things like that, so perhaps just a nice overview to show us where we're at in reference. That would be nice for the community.
Okay, so perhaps January, February timeframe when we're on that schedule where one meeting is a work study, so we have time to do that. That's a great idea. So since we have implemented the new media center process to get an update where we are on that, so I will make a note of that. All right. Anything else? No?
Nope.
All right, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Have a good night. Enjoy fall break.